as the Muslim population in Western countries grow and the white population or the Christian population decrease, you're going to see a lot more policies in Western countries that are going to be very pro-Islamic, pro-Sharia, and anti-Israel. And this is just the result of the immigration of the people from Muslim countries coming in, of them doing dawah and converting people to Islam. And Israel is going to be at the back burner of this, where it's going to seriously affect the ability for Israel to have good relations with Western countries in the future. Islamic extremism is slowly taking over the West. The first video is from Ami Horowitz, where he walks around in Minneapolis and asks many of the residents there whether they prefer Islamic law or American law.
Comfortable living under American law, or do you feel more comfortable living under Sharia law?
Sharia law. I'm a Muslim, I prefer Sharia law. Sharia law, yes.
You prefer Sharia law over American law?
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
And do you find most of your friends feel the same way?
Yeah, of course, if you're Muslim, yeah.
This also leads to many Islamists trying to impose their belief systems and trying to put their own way of life on other Westerners, like in Ireland.
Intimidation by Islamism in this country over about the past 20 years has finally reached Parliament, and that's why they're taking it seriously. I mean, I think that when you look at what's happening there, and all the shenanigans, which most people will look at home and just be appalled by, the fact is it sort of rather masks what I would see as the real issue, and that is that basically MPs, Labour MPs particularly, and some Tories, are being increasingly intimidated, yes. As Chris said there, I think, not by people outside, but locally, you know, and the general atmosphere is one of intimidation. This is the real issue.
120 cities across 45 different countries to ramp up pressure against Israel.
The whole world has demanded that the genocidal state of Israel stop its genocide, and sadly, the whole world today is being held hostage to the policies of a persecuted man of justice, the genocidal state of Israel itself, Mr. Netanyahu, who ignores all warnings and is willing to massacre hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to stay in power.
The Global Day of Action sees millions of people take to the streets, from Madrid to Stockholm to here in London.
First of all, for everyone who can, to just find their heart and to liberate themselves from this identity that we call an Israeli identity. And there is no need for any one of us to serve in the IDF. The IDF should not exist. The state of Israel should not exist.
Here you see how Islamists and Muslims who have come into the West are influencing politically the American and Western governments to go against Israel and to see Israel as a state that shouldn't exist, as an apartheid state. And this is going to affect American-Israeli relationships and also Western countries around the world, because Muslims are taking over a lot of these countries and they're putting in a lot of their influence politically. That's why you have one of these largest protests in London, in Toronto, in France, supporting October 7th and supporting Hamas and supporting Palestinians.
The problem is really, Martin, is that the House of Commons has got a record of basically ignoring the real issue. When Sir David Amish was murdered, what happened? The Commons talked about social media, the dangers of social media. Similarly, when Mike Freer stood down because of intimidation, you know, the MP for Finchley, quite recently, I think this speaker said something like, you know, we've all got to be nicer to each other. In other words, totally missing the point. I mean, whether it is a school teacher in Batley going into hiding, he's still in hiding for showing his pupils cartoons of Mohammed, right up to this very week where William Shawcross, who wrote the report about Prevent, you know, the anti-terrorist strategy, said that in fact fear of being considered Islamophobic meant that actually it wasn't being effective. This is going through our whole society, as is indeed a form of sectarianism. That is the most worrying thing of all, and it's related to this.
And I think you bang on. And I think people are afraid to call this out. And we also saw this with the grooming gang scandals. Yeah. And you're right, we're covering the Shawcross report later on in the show. Islamic extremism being allowed to fester and to flourish because we're afraid to call it out.
The rise of this Islamist political arena coming into Western countries, putting in their anti-Israel rhetoric, it's affecting Jewish students in different universities where they're being attacked for just being Jewish. Just look at these following videos.
Tense moments playing out at Cooper Union during a pro-Palestinian rally yesterday. A group of Jewish students say they were locked inside the library after students involved in the demonstrations ran into the building chanting "Free Palestine" while banging on the doors and windows.
And now the White House under Biden has froze the assets of 4 Israelis who haven't committed any crime, but just because they live in what they consider to be occupied territory, they are having their bank accounts frozen. They're not even American citizens. And this could be another step, because if it goes the way it's going right now with these Islamists having a lot of political influence, they could turn Israel into huge sanctions like Russia has experienced during their war with Ukraine. This is something that could happen in the near future, and the freezing of these 4 Israelis' bank accounts could just be the beginning.
4 Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank for violence against Palestinians and Israeli activists. The administration says the 4 men who carried out various attacks will have their assets and bank accounts frozen, and they'll be restricted from using the US financial system. The White House adding settler violence poses a grave threat to peace, security and stability in the West Bank. Today's order comes amid growing